Those who are just now tuning in or who will tune in over the next few minutes, we want to welcome y'all to Shoal Creek Live. This morning we will be sharing different stories and testimonies and reports from around the country and around the world, from Canada as well, from examples of our students, a team that went to Fairfax, Virginia, and also Brother Malin, who is here with us today, from a 2-week journey all the way to Canada. So without further ado, I'm going to turn the mic over to the students and those who will be sharing at this time from New Orleans.
Man, we go live and y'all give me a microphone. That is the wildest thing y'all could have done. So real quick, this is a little bit outside of the New Orleans mindset. This children's home offering is really cool for me to get to see, because I know most of y'all know that my wife is director of the children's home, and we live on campus there. And we just get to see what y'all's money goes to. So that is truly a huge blessing for us just to get to see that. So I thank y'all for that. But anyways, so this was our third time to go to New Orleans. A couple years ago when I first came up with the idea to go to New Orleans to Mission Lab, I had a handful of people look at me like, "You're crazy, you're going to take students to New Orleans." And you are correct. I am in fact crazy, because I do student ministry and I get verbally assaulted by teenagers on a regular basis. But every time we go to New Orleans, it's a blessing. The last couple of times that we went, I had this mindset that the next year I'm going to do something different. But then I get to New Orleans and I just see the need for Jesus in the city. And every time I think, I got to come back. I can't stop going. And we get to go down there and clean. And I know that sounds wild to think you go down there and pick up trash, but we do. We go down there and we pick up a lot of trash. We go in neighborhoods that people, for the most part, wouldn't be caught going into, because they're not safe neighborhoods, they're dangerous neighborhoods. But the wild thing about it is, so many of these people that we run into are so nice to us, just because they see people that have taken time, they see teenagers that have taken time out of their summers to come down to New Orleans and pick up their neighborhood, because they know that other people aren't going to do it or don't want to go there. One of the biggest blessings from this last trip was me and Luke Bragwell, that's going to speak in a little bit, had the opportunity to stay back one night. We did a nighttime outreach at their library down there, and there's a pretty good amount of homeless people that at nighttime they sleep on the porch of the library. The library allows them to sleep there, and then in the mornings, sun comes up, they leave, they come back, and that's essentially their home. Well, we got to stay back one night and do Bible studies with the group that we go down there and work with City Life. We got to experience doing Bible studies with this homeless population down there. And y'all, it was so cool to sit in just a circle of like 5 or 6 of us. And it was just a sheet of paper, had scripture on one side, questions on the other side. And when one of the people from City Life asked, who wants to pray, who wants to read, these homeless people, they were diving at the opportunity to read scripture. They were jumping at the opportunity to pray. And in these questions that are on the back of the sheet of paper, they start off with things like, what are you thankful for? That's big to sit here and listen to homeless people talk about what they're thankful for. Because sometimes we sit around and we act like life is just miserable. And what are we thankful for? We got homeless people that are sitting here, I'm thankful for a place to lay down and sleep. That as long as they're sleeping on the porch, they're away from the rats that are on the ground. When they're on the porch, they've built a community with those people, so their stuff, for the most part, is safe. So they talk about those things, and you just get to hear it, and it gives you a whole new perspective on life. And you get to see those who just want to read Scripture. They're jumping at the opportunity. You get to hear people that Maybe they grew up and they went to school. Maybe they didn't. Some of them read through Scripture really slowly, but it's just the coolness to me that, man, we don't even take time to read Scripture half the time. They look forward to this Wednesday night study every single week. It is their time. When they find out like something's come up and maybe City Life isn't able to do it, they're not happy about it because it's what they look forward to doing. So for me, that was the biggest blessing on this past trip, is just getting to experience something a little bit different than what we normally got to experience. We've gotten to experience Bible studies every time we've been down there with some of the homeless population or some of those that were homeless that have gotten into housing, that have started their own Bible studies. You see this group of people that they fall in love with Jesus and they start their own Bible studies. We struggle to start Bible studies here. There are homeless people out there in New Orleans that are going and starting their own Bible studies with the guidance of this organization that we get to go and be a part of. So this last time that we were down there, I had the thought again, next summer I'm going to do something different. I'm not. We're going to go to New Orleans again. We'll do it during spring break, so it is different. It's not in the summer. It'll be during spring break. Maybe it won't be as hot. I usually try to do it at the beginning of the summer, so it's not as hot. Well, this year, the week we went, they had record-setting temperatures, and I was like, man, that is phenomenal. So we will go back again, just because every time we go, I just feel like God keeps saying, man, you can't not come down here and serve. There is such a massive need to be here. And this past time, I kind of started letting some students know ahead of time that, hey, we may not come back. We're probably not coming back. I think they were all mad at me for saying that. Every single one of them wants to go back. And that is huge, to take teenagers from a great town like Priceville, where you really don't have a lot of worries, and you take them to a place that there's a lot of brokenness and a lot of darkness. There's a lot of different religions. There's witchcraft. There's voodoo. There's all this stuff. They see that. They see a need, and they get to put to work the things that they've been taught. They get to put their faith to work. So it is a continued encouragement for me to get to see it. And I have now our two youth interns, Luke and Brody, that are getting to look and see ministry a little bit different now, are going to come up and speak. So thank y'all.
Bear with me, guys, as I go through this. First, I want to thank Johnny and the church for setting up these kind of trips for the youth, because it's a big thing to go out in other communities and see how God's working in these communities through City Life NOLA and through other parts of the seminary and through whatever Mission Lab, I guess, is the place that helped us stay there. Got a couple things written down here. I just want to say how big prayer was this year, because this year the homeless community has really just died down a lot. There's not really any homeless people in some areas that were there last year. We walked through some areas last year that were filled to the brim, homeless people everywhere that we prayed over last year, and those places are completely empty now. So that is big. That's huge compared to last year. And the only really thing else I have is I had the privilege, me and Johnny did, to go through a Bible study with some unhoused people on the stairs of a library. And there was a guy named Amara there, and he was telling us how that previous week he had a backpack set on the library stairs, and he saw a guy going through his backpack. And he decided to let that man go through his backpack because he had learned something that previous week in Bible study. I forgot what it was, but he was just so this wasn't just any backpack. He had everything he had in this backpack. Everything he owned in this backpack, and he let the man take anything he wanted out of it. No man without the Holy Spirit inside of him does that. No regular man just goes, I'm just going to let a dude go through my backpack and take everything he wants. That's huge. That's really all I got. Thank y'all for letting me go on this trip, and it was a blessing.
Morning, y'all. I can say without a shadow of a doubt that every year we go to New Orleans, it just keeps becoming a bigger and bigger blessing. Can y'all hear me? Okay, cool. I can also say that with a shadow of a doubt that this never gets easier right here for me. But, but every time we come back from New Orleans, I think to myself, you know what? Speaking isn't exactly what I love to do, but the Lord deserves it, and the Lord has called us to share what we do and how we serve. And so what I wanted to go through, see, look at me, I'm already like, what I'd like to go through is the three main conversations that we were taught. And what this is basically how you can share the gospel, not with only like the homeless population. It's a good way to do that, but also with anybody, just anybody you see on the street, anybody who comes up to you in the store. And so the first is what we like to call casual conversation. And so basically, it's making kind conversation to those and just talking to them, getting to know them a little bit, walking up to them, asking what they're doing. Y'all bear with me. It's you're introducing yourself to a certain person, right? You're getting to know them, and you're building that relationship with them. And that's like your first option. That's what we do. You're serving them, meeting their physical needs, right? So that's what we do. We'd bring them at the park, at the library, like Johnny and Luke was talking about. We'd bring them pizza, and we'd bring them waters and chips and all that, and we'd walk around. And so you're meeting their physical needs and building relationships with those people. And then you move on to what we call meaningful conversation, right? And so as you build the relationships with these people, you start taking things a little bit deeper. You talk about family, where you've been, how you get where you are, what are your goals, y'all. I'm about to drop my phone. And what wakes you up in the morning, those type of simple things. You're just going a little bit deeper into conversation with these people you're trying to talk to. And then you move on to spiritual conversation. And so as you become familiar with these people or whoever you're talking to, you build relationships with them, you can introduce the gospel through this. Because you've got deep, you know each other a little bit better, and you're comfortable sharing this. And so you could ask them if they've ever heard of Jesus, heard of the Bible, or the gospel. And through that, you could share the gospel. You can see where they stand, and if they're willing to open up, willing to learn, willing to listen. And that's the main point of what I pulled from this trip, is how to make meaningful conversation with folks. It's easy to go to New Orleans, and we say this every year, it's easy to go to New Orleans and be bold. But what are you going to do when you come back home to your own city that's corrupt and struggling? Are you going to carry that with you, or are you just going to leave it in New Orleans and come back and be comfortable in the pew? You know, it's serving the Lord and being a Christian is an everyday walk. And it's not just, I'm going to go to this camp and I'm going to be on fire for the Lord, and then that's enough, and then I can come back and I can be lukewarm, and that's okay because I go to church and I raise my hand every now and then and I sing some songs, and then I go home and I'm a decent person. That's not enough. That's not enough for the Lord and what He's done for us in our life. It's supposed to be every day walking out and being bold in your faith. And every time we go to New Orleans, it's just a better and better reminder. Like Johnny said, we can't just not go again, because there are needs in our town, there are needs in Huntsville, there are needs in Mobile, there are needs in Gadsden, there are needs in New Orleans. Everywhere across America, the gospel needs to be spread. And that's just my favorite, that's about all I have, but that's my biggest takeaway from New Orleans, is making meaningful conversation with your community and those around you, and being bold for Christ and living for Him. Thank you.
I think you did better once you put your phone up. You're not as nervous when you have that phone out in front of you. All right, so Fairfax, Virginia, we went July 13th to the 17th. And do me this, if you're in the room and you went on that trip, just go ahead and stand up. We've got some over here. Sometimes they're a little slower to get up. We got them here. We got a couple that's not in here. Miss Shannon's not in here, and Bobby and Jan's back there. I'm going to have Brett and Debbie come forward. They're going to share this morning about their experience. But let me say this. For a lot of people that think that a mission trip is expensive, that it takes a lot of money, this team did some fundraising leading up to the trip. And I think on average, the average person spent about $500 to go to Fairfax. That's flying, that's staying in a hotel, that's your gas, your van rental, all that. $500. And Brett was saying the other day that's one of the cheapest mission trips that you can go on. And not only that, Brett's going to share about Fairfax, but he also has gone to Honduras this past March with another team, so he's going to briefly share about that as well. Fairfax, Virginia, that's Kenji and All People's Community Church. 8 years ago, we went up there in June of 2016 to help them start that church. And so we went back 8 years later to see how they are. We've been in constant contact with them. A good chunk of your proceeds toward the Annie Armstrong Easter offering goes to them every year. And so it was good to go up there. They were encouraged by it. I felt like I was more encouraged to see how we encouraged them and the blessing that it was for them to see us and us be with them. It was a wonderful, wonderful time. And everybody's got a wonderful story about it. But Mr. Brett and Miss Debbie are going to share about their time. Where's Miss Debbie at? There she is. I thought the rapture happened.
My name is Debbie Watson, for those of y'all who don't know, and I am of the old school variety. I have my notes written out instead of on a phone, but I promise I don't have as many notes as Brother Malin does. No, mine either. Our team's visit to Fairfax was an unusual one to me. I'm thinking, Fairfax, Virginia, what do they need? What do I have to offer? I just, was just kind of couldn't figure that out quite much. After going to, I have been like to the uttermost parts of the earth who don't know what air conditioning is or paved roads or indoor plumbing, and it was like, I don't know, what can we offer to Fairfax? So it was kind of hard for me to get my mind around that. Fairfax is a rather affluent area. Everywhere you looked, there were nice parks, nice big buildings, nice condos, all kinds of fancy cars that I couldn't begin to tell you what they were. Even the word little bougie came to mind. And I'm thinking, what can I do, But Pastor Kenji took us on a little trip around the town, and he pointed out, he said, I want you guys to count how many churches you see as we're taking a tour. And guys, it was none. The churches that had been there for quite some time the area became so moved into and grown so that they sold their properties and moved outside of the town and relocated for big profits. But it left this city barren of church places to meet. So that's how it came to be that All People's Church would meet in a school. And Pastor Kenji said almost every school has some other kind of meeting on the weekends, and that's how they make extra money. But for the church, it means setting up and taking down every Sunday, and it's quite the undertaking. And that's one of the things that we helped with that Sunday that we met with them. But even though that seems hard and it seems like, why am I still doing this? God uses that opportunity for them to minister and to meet the needs of the children of the school, the teachers of the school, the administrators of the school, and all of the people who live within walking distance of the school. It gives them that opportunity to meet with them that they might not ordinarily would have had. So God can always use difficult circumstances. And when we as Christians, when we come to Christ and when we know Jesus, we are the family. I love my church family. It's very important and dear to me. And we're to share our burdens, we're to share our heartaches, and we are to share our praise and fellowship with each other. In Fairfax, the diversity was one of the things that kind of blew me away. I was leading in crafts for a couple of nights in Vacation Bible School, and I looked around at one group that I had, and it was like 21 kids in this group, and there were 2 little white kids. The rest were from all over the world, y'all. It was many different languages, many different cultures, but the one thing we had in common was we showed them Jesus. And it's just amazing to look at this big church family that they have there, of All People's Church, and they're of every different culture and all the diverse things that came together, but they do have a common denominator, their love for Jesus. And I heard Pastor Kenji and Pastor Tyler say time and time again how encouraging our visit was to them. They kind of feel like they're on an island, I guess, and even though they're surrounded by so many people, because they're different. You know, when you're in that kind of a city situation, they're different. And it's encouraging to them to know that they have like-minded people that are lifting them up in prayer. And whether, you know, we did, our team did setting up and taking down. We did everything from trimming hedges to, in that 99-degree heat that we took with us up there, it was all the humidity, all the everything that we have, we took it with us. And they were like, we don't know what to do with this. We don't know what to do with this. It was very unusual, but I guess it's because Alabama came to see them. We did also served in a shelter. When Bobby drove us up to that shelter, I thought, he's got the wrong address. This is not a shelter. And I mean, it was a really nice facility. It was really pretty. It just looked like very nice apartment buildings, but it was a shelter for people who are without homes and that could stay there for a while until they could get on their feet. And there were families there. There were women and children there, and we had an awesome time. We did cleaning. When you think you don't have any kind of talent, well, let me tell you, some of these ladies were very talented at organizing. We went into a room where they had received lots of donations, and it was just chaos. It was chaos. And these ladies took their time and organized all that stuff so that they could find things that they did have. Even if you can just organize, God can use that for His will and for His purpose. 1 Thessalonians 5:11 says, comfort each other and edify one another just as you are also doing. As Christians, He gives us new values, new wants, new desires, and we are to help to make disciples. As a disciple of Christ, missions is one of our things that we're called to do. Sometimes it requires a little sacrifice on our parts. We have to give of our time, your precious vacation time, a little financially. We have to give physically. We may have to spend time away from our families. But I will tell you that I've never been on a mission trip that I didn't receive fourfold what I gave. So just be assured that God will open up your eyes and your hearts so that you'll gain much more than you give. But even when we can't do physically or financially, we all have the gift of prayer. We can lift each other up. We can lift these missionaries up every day in prayer, and because James 5 reminds us that the effective and fervent prayer of a righteous man reveals much. And I'm going to leave you with this promise from Daniel 12:3. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of heaven, and those who lead many to righteousness will shine like the stars forever and ever.
So, Stedman, I'm not sure why I'm up here. I mean, David said almost exactly what I was going to go through. But we got into Fairfax, and hot. Hot is not the word for it. It was the hottest time they had had in years up there, and we're out trimming hedges and cutting. We didn't cut grass, but we trimmed all the hedges, went out there and worked. It was miserable hot, but we got through it. Kenji is the main pastor there. Tyler, I guess, was associate pastor, and I connected with Tyler extremely well. Tyler actually played baseball at Tennessee Tech. So right then we kicked off and spent a lot of time with Tyler, talking to him, getting to know him, doing stuff. Just when we went and toured D.C., hung out with him and went through that area. Capitol Hill is a hill. We all suffered trying to walk up Capitol Hill. It was hot, and it is on a hill. But anyway, so this was a mission trip that is not like any other mission trip I'd been on. All the other mission trips I had gone on, I was building something, doing construction, out doing something with my hands. This was not that kind of mission trip. And I wondered, am I supposed to go to that? Am I supposed to do that? And I had thoughts of maybe not going for a while, and I thought, no, I'm going to go and going to see. It was VBS. We did VBS at night. And I haven't done much with the VBS, and the little kids running everywhere. I got to do sports. My knees are not good at all, but I ran the gym with all them little kids until I couldn't run anymore. But I found a blessing. I got a blessing out of all of that. So one of the things that shocked me, or not necessarily shocked me, was they meet in a school. So we get up and go to church at 8:30 in the morning. I'm thinking, we're going to Sunday school, we're going to church, we're going all this. Oh no. 2 hours we set up to have church. So think about that. They drive a truck up, they unload all their equipment, they set everything up, they do all this preparation for church, 2 hours to get everything ready just right. Have your service, you're done with your service, guess what? You have 2 hours to break it all back down and put it back in the truck. I wonder how many churches here would be full if you spent 4 hours of your Sunday before and after church service just so you could have a service. How many people would do that? I mean, it was amazing to see those guys that went out there and spent all that time. I mean, they had little maps. This has to go here, this has to go here. Everything has to be set up just right. And then it has to be put back because the school needs that area for the next day. So it just hit me, just how many churches would be full if we had to do that kind of sacrifice just to have one service. Not Sunday school, but just a service. And the same thing on VBS every night. So the school had meetings there every day. We did VBS at night. So we had, again, not as big, but you still had 30 or 45 minutes to get everything set up, everything prepped, and then get ready so you could have VBS and then tear it back down again. So, you know, that weighed on my heart a lot, that sharing all that was just amazing, that the attitude they had was, we got to get it done, we'll get this thing, and then we're going to have a service, and they were great services. You know, that just laid on my heart that what do we really need to do and how do we need to push ourselves to come out and do more. I mean, not just come here and sit on these church pews, not come in and have a church building like this, but do something, you know, more than that. And what can we do? So Debbie had mentioned the trip that Kenji took us around the area. We went 2 or 3 miles around the area. He said there was like a triangle. There's 3 main attraction areas in Fairfax, Virginia, and everything's built around them. Literally no churches. Apartment complexes everywhere, just building everywhere, and not a church. Not a church inside. And as she said, the churches had sold out to make money, to make profit, and moved out of that city. Well, that's a huge void and a huge need that they have up there. And it's just something that they were excited. And the name of their church, I mean, they went through a 20-minute presentation on how they changed their logo and what it meant to them for All People's Church, and how their church really meant to them and what it meant to them. So it truly was an all people's church. Like Debbie said, there was people from everywhere that were there different languages, different attire, just totally different than what you would expect to see. You know, it was interesting. We were a blessing to them. They were certainly a blessing to us. But it just shows how God can use us no matter where we are. And just look out for the small opportunities that we have that we can do and use and just do what God wants us to do. So, I mean, that was from my trip to Fairfax. And just, I didn't have any pictures. I should have brought some pictures. But I did go in March to Honduras. And that was one of those mission trips that we're going to build things. We're going to straighten things up. So there's Jan and John are missionaries out of Texas. That Camp Cali is where we went and worked. So we stayed on camp. We stayed right there the whole week and worked there. It's actually a retreat for the pastors in that area that they're able to come there, get some lessons from Jan and John, and just take that back to their churches. I'm not sure how the pastors there make it. Could you imagine, Brother Malin? 7 days a week you have to work. You don't get an off day. And your payday at the end of the month is $50. That's what the pastors make there. And they are happy. They go out. They're out in the community all the time doing everything. Well, this mission trip to Honduras, normally it's Monday, you're jumping up, you're ready to go, you've got all these jobs and all these things that need to get done the week, and you're full blast. You get up, you eat breakfast, and you're gone. This one was not quite like that. We got up, had breakfast, about 9:30. It says, okay, let's go find us some jobs to work on. I thought, we're going to spend a whole week here. We're going to get up here, and we're not going to get anything accomplished. Well, come to find out, they had went the previous week down to the lumber yard or the hardware stores or whatever to order all the material for us. None of it had come in. So they had a few things for us to work on. I did some tongue and groove stuff on the ceiling and some things that were left over there. And I got through with that job, and I thought, well, what am I going to do? There was, 18 of us there working. What are we going to do? And they had an old house that they were going to try to refurbish for the people that stayed there at the camp. And you can only get so many one sledgehammer, and 10 people doesn't, you don't do a whole lot of progress. So anyway, we got through with the job we had and turn around, and here comes a truck full of supplies. And I thought, where did that come from? And he's like, I didn't expect this to come in. So we went from that job to doing another job. And we would get done with that job, and it would be like, okay, I have no more material. What do we do? And here another truck would come. And it did that the whole week. We would get done with the job, and we would be finished, and we would think, okay, we got to find something else to do. Here comes a truck. And the last truck, unfortunately, showed up that was full of sheetrock. So we got to do sheetrock in the bathrooms. So we actually did the areas. There's like 3 different houses there that each one of them has 8 rooms in it. And they were at different stages of being finished. Some had plumbing exposed, some had nothing in there. So some were complete. It was just how much money they had and how much material they got there. But it was so interesting to see, what are we going to do? We're going to get here, we're not going to have anything to do. But God supplied our needs every minute we needed it. It was just amazing to see how we got done with the job, and it was like we would turn around and here a truck would be coming down the dirt road. And it was just, just amazing to see God at work. And hopefully I'll go back there next year. I've already been invited to go back, so we'll see what we end up doing next year. But both, I've been so blessed to go. I don't even know how many mission trips I've been able to go on, but every mission trip is something different. You get something different from it. And as Debbie said, you get 10 times back what you put into it. Just be willing to let God use you and go out and do your missions. Thanks.
I only got 3 pages of notes. All right. First off, I'm back. You may not think that's much of a big deal, but when you spend 2 weeks on a motorcycle, that's a big deal. We did a little over 6,000 miles going up to, I thought we were going to Saskatchewan in Saskatchewan, Canada. That's a tongue twister. But I ended up going even further to Prince Albert, which is one of the last cities before you get to the Northwest Territory of Canada. And I just want y'all to know, there ain't nothing out there. It's out there. But I did. We made it to the run. The first slide, please. That is a picture of all at the event that I was going to, the main event that drove me to want to go on this mission trip. I'm a full patch member of the Disciples of Christian Motorcycle Club, and our goal is to reach out to the 1% motorcycle clubs and to what is known as the 99% motorcycle clubs, to try to reach these people, the Hells Angels, the Vogels, all of them, the Outlaws, and the ones that I met in particular on this trip. See, what I wasn't planning on and what we hadn't thought about is that Sturgis was happening the same weekend that we were about to go. It was going to get kicked off. And that's all great and wonderful, except that a lot of the people that I wanted to meet, guess where they were headed? To Sturgis. And so I didn't get to meet as many of them as I wanted to, but I did get to meet several. I got to encourage other brothers there that are also missionaries to all these bike clubs, but I got to meet many of the Sons of Silence, which is a 1% club there as well, in particular in the Dakotas. And what I want to talk about, besides getting to go to that, was the trip itself. When it comes to a mission trip, just as you heard, it takes faith. Just as Brett just said, that every time he got finished with a job site, God would provide more opportunities. And it's the same for us too. Next slide, please. On this trip, we had a couple breakdowns. That's the picture there on the left. One of the motorcycles, that the guy that was on it, I would call him Big Country. You saw him. He's the big bearded guy with overalls. Well, he's always wearing overalls. And so his bike, motorcycles vibrate so much, it actually vibrated one of the wires off the battery. And so it just died in the mid-ride. And so we had to completely strip the bike to find which wire it was and all that to get to it. Another bike, the oil filter rattled loose off of it. And so as we're going down the road, the other guy, we call him Dude, that's his nickname, his oil just started spraying everywhere. And we thought for sure the bike was done. I mean, when you see oil, you got a problem. And I mean, there's oil everywhere. And so we're thinking, all right, we've not even made it to Canada yet, and our trip is over. But it turns out it was just the filter had come out or loose enough, and all of it. So we had to do an oil change there and all that good stuff. But God provided. One of the interesting things is that I have read about locust plagues all my life and, swarms of locusts. I'd never actually seen a swarm of locusts. Guess what I found in Canada? A swarm of locusts. We were going through wheat fields. And y'all, when I say Saskatchewan, Canada is the plains of Canada. It's just like our plains out west. It's full of fields and farms as far as I can see. Well, we're going through this beautiful wheat field, and I'm thinking, man, this is awesome. This is great. It was record highs. It was in the 98s to 100 the whole time going to Canada. We are dying. But when we got into Canada, a storm came through. It was a cool front. And so it was nice. We got up the next morning. I got to wear a jacket. It was wonderful. I went from sweating to being cold. And so we're riding through these wheat fields, and y'all, it's the rolling plains, hills, beautiful. Everything's great. And then all of a sudden, they're not flying. They're already on the ground. But we didn't realize it was swarm. And so as we're going through them, they're coming up. And let me tell you, there was not a square inch on the bike or you that was not covered in guts. I mean, they were pelting us like crazy. But God still provided. The very next stop, y'all, you can't see it. Maybe you can. That's a bird. And when we stopped at the gas station, I don't even know what kind of bird it is. We were going to try to look it up, but there's no cell signal. These birds just came by and started eating all the bugs off the bikes. It's free meal for them, but guess what it is for us? It's cleaning my bike. So we just sat there and we just drank water and watched the birds eat the bugs off the bike. It was great. They crawled all over the hot engines, everything. They didn't care. God always provides. And when you go on a mission trip, you got to go on faith. Faith is going to come into play. That doesn't mean you don't plan. Next slide, please. The truth is we were going to go and we were going to camp. We were going to camp out every night. Again, a little bit of poor planning. We did not realize Sturgis was going on, and every single campground is booked. And FYI, Yellowstone is, if you're ever wanting to go to Yellowstone, it's only open for so many months. And guess what? Every campsite is booked. And so we're constantly trying to find places. Well, when you cross the border, you're not allowed to carry weapons and stuff. So we had no weapons. Well, guess what we're sleeping with? Do you know that there are spots? They actually track the grizzly bears, and some of them are very aggressive. And so they will actually cancel your camping if the bear comes into that area. They know where they are, some of them, the more aggressive ones. And they always tell you, just know that there's a bear watching you at all times. And so we're sitting there, it's like, all right, we're going to camp. And y'all, I'm sleeping in a hammock. And so basically what I am is a burrito. And we're going to sit there with these grizzly bears. And so, but that requires faith. And not only that, y'all, the picture over here, that's buffalo. These things are everywhere. I showed the pictures, and it's not just buffalo. There's elk everywhere. There's deer everywhere. They're everywhere. And we're constantly, I was telling Rand a second ago, there was a couple scary things. I didn't even tell my wife, because she may never let me go on another trip again. But there's some scary stuff. But you got to be prepared, and sometimes you just got to have faith. Go to the next slide. I told y'all that I was sleeping in a what? Good. Do you see that spot right there? I took a picture of it. That's a tree. Do you know what's required for a hammock to work? Trees. And you need 2. How many do you see? Guess what mine did not get to sleep in? A lot. A hammock. I slept on the ground. And the truth is, there were many nights that there were storms. There were some nights that we could not find a campground, so we'd have to get a hotel. And of course, they were expensive and all that. But that's the plains. It's flats, it's rolling, all that good stuff. But there's other things too, y'all. When you go on a mission trip, not only do you have to have faith, you got to be prepared for the hard things that are going to arise. There's always issues, always. And when it comes to like what we did on a motorcycle, the ride itself is the experience. The ride is dangerous itself. There were roads, and I took pictures of it. I didn't put it on the slide. I had thousands of pictures, but I showed Ashley. There was time after time I would take a picture while riding on a motorcycle that you could see the end of the road as it fell off the horizon. It's that flat. And like when we were going through Wyoming, there's nobody. Do y'all know that's the least populated state in the United States? And it is huge. It's a huge state. And I would be going, and so the horizon's about 30 miles. And for 30 miles, there's nobody. There's not another car. It's just us. And so we had a ball. We played on our motorcycles and did way too fast the speeds and everything. But not everything was flat and straight. Go to the next slide. Okay. This is called Beartooth Pass. Beartooth Pass is one of the most famous and beautiful roads you'll ever go on. And for motorcyclists, it's number 1. And the reason why is, as you see the road, it is straight up the side of a mountain on both sides. And the only way to get up that mountain is to zigzag all the way up. It's a snake road. All the way up, all the way down. And it's through ice caps. Y'all, as you're riding, you go from 80 degrees to freezing up the side. And so you got to be prepared. And so you're sweating at one point, freezing at another. And on top of it, it was raining the day we went down it and up it. And so the road itself is dangerous. And what you need to know is that when it goes on mission trips, there's danger. The other picture is called Glacier National Park. We went through Glacier. That's called the Road to the Sun. It's the second most famous road out there. And so we did that too. And what you see there is that little rock wall, that's a cliff. and you can't see the bottom. On the right is the rock wall of the mountain, and that is a literal waterfall as you're going through it on a motorcycle. And so the road itself is dangerous. And so I want to teach you about something, because some of you, if you've ever been on a motorcycle, you're going to know what I'm about to say. If you have been on a motorcycle, if you've never been on one, you're going to have to trust me. But you who've been on motorcycles before are going to know exactly what I'm talking about. Motorcycle is science. It's actual science. And so go to the next slide. I'm not very good at science, but follow me. You got centrifugal and centrifugal pressure. So, and to give you this, to help you understand, when a motorcycle is going in a curve, there is a force. The centrifugal force is going to push you out of that curve. And you can feel it in your cars and your trucks. If you're going around a curve, you can feel your back end get a little loose sometimes. That's that force. It's pushing you out of the curve. Anytime you go in a curve, depending on your velocity, the higher the velocity, the more the force is going to push you out. That's why if you're going around a real curve fast, your car is going to move on you. It's different on a motorcycle. The motorcycle doesn't have 4 points of contact, 4 wheels. It's got 2 wheels. And you feel the force a whole lot more. You can feel it pushing you. And so as you're going around, you're afraid it's going to throw you off the bike. And so you got to do something to keep that force balanced. And it's that centrifugal force that's going to make you go. It's what makes the moon go around in orbits. It's how our planets orbit. It's the same pattern, same science. Depending on how sharp the curve is how fast you have to go. Like if it's a real sharp curve, you've got to measure it and you've got to slow down just a little bit, but you've got to keep the velocity going, because if you stop moving, it's going to sling you out. And so you have to go the opposite of what you think. You have to put an opposite force. And so you've got this force pushing you out, so you've got to put a force to keep you in. And what that's called in the motorcycle world is called leaning. You've got to lean into the curb, okay? Well, anybody that leans, and you've seen it in like motorcycle races where they'll get 75 degrees and you see them leaning off the bikes. Their elbows and the knees are almost dragging on the ground. They're having to lean that bike. And when you lean something like that, what happens normally when you lean? If you lean too far, what happens? You fall over. And so when you see this curb coming, your natural instinct is not to lean the bike. You don't want to, but you got to. You've got to lean the bike. You've got to put pressure. And so you don't want to lean over. You're afraid you're going to fall, but you've got to. But the thing is, there's this force pushing you, so you lean into this force. You lean into this pressure that's there. And depending on how much pressure's there is how much you got to turn. And also, when it comes to bikes, you counter turn. All right? And so if I'm wanting to go left, guess what I have to do? I got to turn right. I got to lean the bike. You turn the bars just slightly to the right, and when you turn it to the right, the whole bike will do what? It leans, which helps you. And so when I'm coming into a fast curve to the left, I push just a little bit of pressure on this handlebar opposite and lean a little bit, and that whole bike will lean like this. And once you get the right amount of force, opposite force, and leaning in this force here, you hit what's known as the balance. It's the perfect line. Every motorcyclist aims for that perfect line to come in and out. And when you find that balance, when you find that perfection, you can relax. And actually, when you come out of the curve, the bike will actually stand up on its own. And in the curve, you're not having to fight it hardly at all. You find that balance, that line. And that's why I want to give you this verse. It's Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. When it comes to a motorcycle, next slide, please. When it comes to a motorcycle, you can lean into these curves, and believe it or not, you can relax. And it actually becomes enjoyable. because you find the balance between the force pushing you out and the force that you're leaning you in, and you just ride it out and it stands you straight. Something else about motorcycles that a lot of people aren't aware of if you've never been on one, you go where you're looking. And so, like, if you're going in a curve, you don't look right in front of you. You want to look right in front of you. That's what you want to do, because you want to look for sand, you want to look for gravel, because when you lean those motorcycles, you're only sitting on about that much of rubber. And if there's gravel there, you got a problem, all right? Because there's nothing to hold you. There's no friction anymore. And so you got to have good tires. You got to have a good surface. So everybody wants to watch right in front of you to make sure you're there, but that's not what you do. If you're going in a curve, you're not looking in front of you. You're looking where you're going, because you're naturally going to go there. If you're looking straight in front of you, you're never going to hold your line. If you're looking off to the sides, you're never going to hold your line. You've got to keep your eye focused on where you're coming out at. You got to. Or if it's a blind curve, that's faith. You just know there's going to be an end of that curve coming up at some point. And you always have to base off of it. And so the point I'm trying to get to you is this. When it comes to missions, y'all, you got to keep your eye on Christ. And you also got to have faith. And you know the force is going to put you out, but you can find a balance between the force. One of the reasons that I wanted to go on this mission trip is because it's something I had never done before. I had been on motorcycles before, but most people that ride motorcycles have never gone 6,000 miles. Never. There's some people that'll buy motorcycles, they don't even put 6,000 miles on the bike in years. And we did it in 2 weeks. And so I didn't know if I could do it. Many of you don't go on mission trips for the same reason. You don't think you can do it. You have every excuse on why you can't. It's either money, it's physical ability, it's fear. You know, I was fearful of what was going to happen to my family while I was gone. I was wondering about the church. The first thing I look at Stedman, what happened? I mean, when you leave this many people for 2 weeks, you get concerned. There's an old saying for pastors, when the cat's away, the mice will play. And so I was thinking, well, what happened? And Stedman reported, man, everything's good. And so there's all these fears, all these things that would keep me from wanting to go on this trip. God worked it all out. God worked that all out on the trip. He fixed our bikes on the issues. Does that mean everything went great? No, we had breakdowns. I promise you, I didn't want to go through a swarm of locusts. That was interesting. And we had hailstorms. We went through every kind of thing that you can imagine, but God walked us through it all the way. And I'm here today. I'm home. And some of y'all think, man, you know, that first thing I said when I got up here, I'm back. When you go on a 2-week trip, that's all you're wanting to do. God, just get me back. Just get me back. Along the way, every time we stopped, we would ask people if you'd want to pray. We would look and pray for opportunities to share our testimony. So at every gas station, and on a motorcycle, you got 5 gallons. And so you stop a lot for gas, all right? And so we're going, and every gas station, we would look for someone to start a conversation with. Just say, hey, man, how are you going? Where are you going? And most of the time, you didn't have to work hard because everybody's looking at 2 or 3 crazy guys on a motorcycle from Alabama. And so they would ask us questions and start the conversation. And we would just tell them what we're doing, all of it. And then we would say, hey, before we get back on the bikes, we're going to say a prayer. Is there anything we can pray for you about? And do you know what? Half of them were excited. Half of them would be happy for you to pray. Half of them were happy to hear your story. The other half, not so much. They would say, no, thank you, or I'm good. Nobody got mad. They would just politely decline. And do you know what? We still prayed for them because that's what you do. We were able to share the gospel with multiple people. We got to hear a lot of testimonies, and one young lady got led to Christ in Saskatchewan. And so, y'all, it was a wonderful trip, and I could not have gone on this trip without you. And my challenge to you as your pastor here at Shoal Creek is simply this: dare to try. There's something that God has on your heart to do. I know He does. And you're not doing it because you're scared. You got 100 reasons on why you can't do something. Step out on faith. Look for the balance. There are things in this world as a force that is trying to sling you away from Christ, just as I'm going into a curve. That centripetal force is trying to push you out. Lean in. Keep your eye on Christ, and I promise you, He'll make your path straight. But He ain't going to do it if you're not willing to go. This church, if you don't realize it, we have just been all over the Northern Hemisphere. This physical church. Not only do we not have missionaries around the world, but you have an opportunity that you can get involved too. You can go on it. I will go on another motorcycle trip. It's going to be a while. My butt has to heal. I'm beat up, sore, and tired, and God knows my bike is. But y'all, I had a blast, and I couldn't have done it without you. I couldn't have done it without your support. I want to thank the church for helping me not only financially, but the members of the church that came by and checked on my wife. That meant a world to me. I had members that mowed the yard, and that's a blessing. Because if you're like, maybe some of y'all are different, but I'm sitting on the road every time I talk to my wife. She says it's raining. I'm thinking, oh my God, the yard is going to be terrible. It's fine. Everything has worked out. Y'all, it's faith. It's faith. And all I want to do is spur and encourage you to step out on faith. Just give it a shot. Give it a chance. I would love to talk more to you about it. If you want to know more about the trip, I'll be glad to talk to you about it. I got thousands and thousands of pictures. Thousands. But thank y'all so much for allowing me to go and to be a part of it. The gospel was shared, and I got to grow in faith. And I got to see parts of the country I never dreamed I'd ever see. And I will say this, if you've never been to Yellowstone or to Glacier National Park, just that whole area, you need to go. It really is worth it just to take a trip out there to go and see it. That's some of the most beautiful country I've seen ever in my life. But I will also say this, I love Alabama. And I really like trees. And so thank y'all so much for giving me an opportunity to go. I couldn't have done it without the church. I couldn't. This church not only took care of my family, but it provided for me the means to be able to go and to share the gospel. And I thank each and every one of you. And the truth is, any reward that I may get from this trip from Christ in heaven, you will receive as well, because I couldn't have done it without you. And so I want to thank y'all personally for that. And so with that, I'm going to pray, and I'm going to turn it over to Brother Stedman to simply close this service today. And so let's pray. Father, I thank you so much for allowing us to be able to come here this morning, to be able to share all these wonderful just reports, Father, on how you worked in New Orleans, how you watched over the youth as they ministered to the homeless and to the little darker areas, to be able to go and to be light and salt, to pick up and to take care, to drive hundreds of miles just to pick up trash from someone to show the love of Christ, to start a conversation. Just as Luke said, how to start a conversation. Thank you for those that went to Virginia. May you continue to be with Kenji and All People's Church. I thank you for their willingness to go and again, just to serve. And Father, I thank you for the opportunity to go and to start conversations with people all along the way to Canada and to encourage others that are striving to reach people in Canada. Father, I thank you for this church. I thank you for the willingness to come here and to be a part of what you're doing in this church right here in Priceville. Father, I thank you. May you continue to keep your hand upon us, continue to guide us, and help us strive to be the light and salt. And it's in Jesus' name